the WWE Universe witnessed something they will never forget when Bron Breakker crossed a line that sent shockwaves through the entire wrestling world. What started as another chapter in professional wrestling turned into a moment of pure chaos as the powerhouse unleashed an assault so vicious that it left Paul Heyman broken and bloodied on the canvas. Before we dive into every brutal detail of what happened, make sure you hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss any of the insane moments coming your way. The arena was electric that night as fans packed the stadium expecting a typical WWE showdown. Bron Breakker had been on an absolute tear through the roster, leaving destruction in his wake with every match. His combination of raw power and athletic ability made him one of the most dangerous competitors in the company. The second-generation superstar had been making his presence felt week after week, and nobody was safe from his path of destruction. Paul Heyman stood ringside as he always did, playing his role as the wise counsel and master manipulator who had guided so many careers to greatness. His sharp tongue and brilliant mind had made him a legend in the business, but on this particular night, his words would come back to haunt him in the most violent way possible. The tension had been building for weeks between Heyman and Breakker. Every time Heyman spoke on the microphone, he found a way to undermine Breakker's accomplishments. He would talk about how Breakker was just living off his family name and how he lacked the intelligence to truly make it to the top. Heyman's verbal assaults became more personal with each passing week. He questioned Breakker's heart, his mind, and his ability to handle the pressure of being a main event star. The crowd could feel something bad was brewing because Breakker's face showed more anger every single time Heyman opened his mouth. His jaw would clench, his fists would tighten, and you could see the rage building behind his eyes like a volcano ready to explode. The breaking point came during a segment where Heyman was in the ring cutting another one of his trademark promos. He was talking about his client and how they were superior to everyone on the roster, especially Bron Breakker. Heyman got so confident that he started calling Breakker out by name, saying he was nothing but a genetic disappointment who would never live up to the family legacy. The words echoed through the arena as fans gasped at how far Heyman was willing to go. He kept pushing and pushing, describing Breakker as someone who was all muscle and no brain, a caveman trying to compete in a chess match. Heyman's voice dripped with condescension as he painted Breakker as inferior in every way. That was the moment everything changed. Bron Breakker's music hit the speakers and the entire building erupted. He stormed down the ramp with a look in his eyes that made it clear this was not going to be a war of words. Heyman's confident smirk began to fade as he saw Breakker moving with purpose and fury. The Advocate started backing up in the ring, suddenly realizing he might have pushed too far this time. Security personnel rushed toward the ring, but Breakker was moving too fast and with too much intent for anyone to stop him. He slid under the bottom rope and Heyman tried to escape through the other side, but Breakker was on him in seconds. What happened next was absolutely brutal. Breakker grabbed Heyman by his expensive suit jacket and yanked him back into the center of the ring. The look of terror on Heyman's face was real as he realized there was nowhere to run and nobody who could save him. Breakker lifted him up and drove him down with a spine buster that shook the entire ring. The impact was so hard that Heyman's body bounced off the canvas. Fans were on their feet, some cheering the comeuppance while others were shocked at the level of aggression. Breakker was not finished, not even close. He pulled Heyman up again, and you could see the Advocate trying to beg for mercy, his hands up in a pleading gesture, but Breakker was beyond reason at this point. The assault continued as Breakker launched Heyman across the ring with a devastating throw that sent him crashing into the corner turnbuckles. Heyman crumpled to the mat, already looking dazed and hurt, but Breakker stalked toward him like a predator circling wounded prey. Officials were trying to get into the ring to stop it, but Breakker was so consumed by rage that he shoved them away without even looking. His focus was entirely on making Heyman pay for every insult, every slight, every word that had questioned his worth. The crowd was losing their minds because they had never seen Breakker this unhinged before. This was not the controlled aggression of a calculated wrestler, this was pure unfiltered fury. Breakker pulled Heyman up once more and positioned him for his signature spear. The entire arena held its breath as Breakker charged forward with explosive power. The spear connected with such force that it looked like Heyman had been hit by a truck. His body folded in half from the impact and he collapsed in a heap on the mat. Medical staff rushed to ringside, but Breakker still was not done. He picked up Heyman's limp body and hoisted him onto his shoulders. What came next was his brutal power slam, executed with even more force than usual. Heyman crashed down and laid motionless as the ring shook from the impact. Blood was visible on Heyman's face, streaming from his nose and mouth, painting a gruesome picture of the damage Breakker had inflicted. Security finally managed to swarm the ring in numbers too great for even Breakker to fight through. They formed a barrier between him and Heyman, but Breakker was still trying to get through them, his eyes wild with rage. He was shouting words that the cameras could not quite pick up, but his meaning was crystal clear. This was a message being sent to everyone in the locker room. Medical personnel surrounded Heyman, checking his vital signs and carefully placing him on a stretcher. The once confident Advocate looked completely broken, his expensive suit torn and stained with blood, his face swollen and already beginning to bruise. The stretcher was wheeled up the ramp as fans watched in stunned silence, the reality of what they had just witnessed sinking in. Breakker finally allowed himself to be escorted from the ring, but not before he grabbed a microphone. His voice was hoarse with emotion as he spoke directly to the camera. He said he was tired of people disrespecting him and thinking they could hide behind words without facing consequences. He declared that anyone who questioned him or his legacy would end up just like Heyman, broken and carried out on a stretcher. The intensity in his voice made it clear this was not a scripted promo, this was real emotion pouring out. He dropped the microphone and walked up the ramp, leaving behind a scene of chaos and destruction. The fallout from this incident was immediate and massive. Social media exploded with reactions from fans, wrestlers, and industry insiders. Some praised Breakker for standing up for himself and refusing to be disrespected. Others criticized the level of violence and questioned whether things had gone too far. WWE officials released a statement saying they were evaluating the situation and that consequences would be forthcoming. Heyman was taken to a local medical facility where he was treated for multiple injuries including a concussion, broken nose, and several bruised ribs. The images of his battered face circulated online and became one of the most talked about moments in recent wrestling history. In the days that followed, the wrestling world could not stop talking about what had happened. Analysts debated whether Breakker had crossed a line or if Heyman had pushed him to a breaking point where he had no choice but to respond physically. Other wrestlers began commenting on the situation, with some expressing support for Breakker's actions while others called for discipline and restraint. The WWE universe was divided, with passionate arguments happening on every social media platform and wrestling forum. Some fans created highlight videos of the assault that racked up millions of views, while others wrote think pieces about violence in professional wrestling. Breakker himself seemed to have no regrets about his actions. In interviews following the incident, he remained unapologetic about what he had done to Heyman. He said that respect is earned and that people cannot expect to continuously disrespect someone without eventually facing consequences. He pointed out that Heyman had spent weeks attacking him verbally and that he had simply responded in the only language that mattered in professional wrestling. His confidence never wavered as he stated that he would do the same thing again if put in the same situation. The conviction in his words showed that this was not just about one moment of rage but about establishing his position in the hierarchy of WWE. Paul Heyman's absence from television following the attack added to the impact of what Breakker had done. Weeks went by without any appearance from the Advocate, and reports indicated he was still recovering from his injuries. The longer Heyman stayed away, the more the attack seemed to resonate as a defining moment. When he finally returned to WWE programming, the usually confident and verbose Heyman was noticeably different. He spoke more carefully, and there was a visible wariness in his eyes whenever Breakker's name was mentioned. The psychological impact of the beating seemed as significant as the physical damage. The incident changed the trajectory of Bron Breakker's career in WWE. He was no longer seen as just another talented young wrestler trying to make a name for himself. The assault on Heyman established him as someone who would not be pushed around or disrespected under any circumstances. His matches following the incident carried an extra edge of danger because everyone knew he was capable of snapping at any moment. Opponents approached him more cautiously, and even veterans showed him a level of respect that had not been there before. The beating of Heyman had elevated Breakker's status in a way that winning matches alone never could have. The relationship between Heyman and Breakker remained permanently altered by what happened that night. Anytime they crossed paths on WWE programming, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Heyman would choose his words much more carefully when Breakker was the topic of discussion, and the former Advocate seemed to carry the memory of that beating with him. The power dynamic had shifted completely. Where once Heyman held all the cards with his verbal abilities and mental manipulation, now Breakker had proven that physical dominance could trump everything else. The Advocate had learned a harsh lesson about the dangers of pushing someone too far. This moment will be remembered as one of the most intense and brutal beatdowns in WWE history. It showcased Bron Breakker's raw power and willingness to do whatever it takes to defend his honor. It showed that even the most protected figures in wrestling are not immune from consequences when they cross the wrong person. The image of Paul Heyman broken and bloody on the canvas serves as a reminder that in professional wrestling, words can start wars but actions finish them. Breakker proved he is not someone to be taken lightly or disrespected, and the entire WWE universe took notice. Make sure you subscribe to stay updated on all the latest developments, because if this taught us anything, it's that anything can happen in WWE and you never know when the next explosive moment will occur.